The Grand Canyon, one of the world's most spectacular natural wonders, has been studied and explored for over a century. Scientists have been astonished and perplexed by what they have just discovered hidden deep within its ancient rock formations. From unexpected fossils to enigmatic geological structures, the Grand Canyon has once more proven to be a source of surprise and wonder. Join us as we unveil the shocking discoveries that are rewriting this iconic landmark's history. Grand Canyon. The Grand Canyon is one of the great natural wonders that every American should see. But the canyon's history is much more complex. It was first encountered by humans around 12,000 years ago, as the first Americans moved through the continent. A few Spanish explorers began coming through by the 16th century. In May 1869, John Wesley Powell, a one-armed Civil War veteran and future chief of the U.S. Geological Survey, led 9 men on an unparalleled rowing excursion down the Colorado River. His article from that journey, as well as a second 2 years later, helped establish the Grand Canyon as a national emblem and natural wonder. And nowadays, the Grand Canyon receives 6 million tourists every year, making it the second most visited national park in the U.S., trailing only the far more accessible Great Smoky Mountains. Visitors gather here to marvel at the canyon's jaw-dropping size and the sheer spectacle of how the Colorado River chiseled through layer after layer of rock to reveal an ombre of reds, browns, pinks, purples, and other colors. Fossil discovery. An elite group of paleontologists from all around the world have banded together to investigate some significant fossil footprints that were just recently found in a remote area of Grand Canyon National Park in Arizona. Trackways of primitive tetrapods animals that walk on 4 legs that lived in an ancient desert environment have been found inside a big sandstone boulder that has been extraordinarily well preserved. The fossil tracks, which are 280 million years old, date back to almost the start of the Permian period, before the first dinosaurs lived. In 1918, the first scientific publication that reported fossil traces from the Grand Canyon was published. This was just 1 year prior to the Grand Canyon National Park being founded as a component of the National Park Service. The Grand Canyon National Park is celebrating its centennial this year, and as part of the festivities, fresh findings from the study conducted on ancient footprints found in the area are being presented in a scientific journal that came out this week. Dr. Heitor Franceschini, a paleontologist from Brazil, is the lead author of the new paper. He works at the Laboratory of Vertebrate Paleontology at the Federal University in Rio Grande do Sul. He worked on the paper with scientists from Germany and the U.S. The year 2017 marked the first time that Franceschini and Dr. Spencer Lucas, curator of paleontology at the New Mexico Museum of Natural History and Science in Albuquerque, New Mexico, visited the Grand Canyon fossil track locality. The paleontologists immediately identified that the fossil tracks were formed by a long-extinct relative of very early reptiles. The fossil traces were comparable to tracks known from Europe and referred to as Ichneotherium. This is the first time that Ichneotherium has been found in the Coconino Sandstone and in a desert environment, and the discovery was made at the Grand Canyon. In addition, the geological age of these tracks makes them the youngest instance of this particular form of fossil trail ever found elsewhere in the globe. Ichneotherium is a type of footprint that scientists believe was left behind by a mysterious group of extinct tetrapods known as the diadectomorphs. The diadectomorphs were an ancient group of 4-legged animals that had features of both amphibians and reptiles. In the field of vertebrate paleontology, important and unsolved problems concerning the evolutionary relationships of diadectomorphs, as well as their paleobiology, have persisted for a very long time. Although it's possible that the animal that left the footprints in the Grand Canyon may never be identified with absolute certainty, the trackways in the Grand Canyon preserve the journey of an extremely ancient terrestrial vertebrate. A prehistoric animal with short legs and a big body is suggested by the quantifiable properties of the tracks and trackways. The creature walked using all 4 of its legs, and each foot had 5 fingers that did not have claws. The geological formation in which the newly discovered fossil tracks in the Grand Canyon were preserved is another noteworthy component of these traces. The Coconino Sandstone is an Aeolian, wind-deposited rock formation that displays cross-bedding and other sedimentary features that indicate it was deposited in a desert or dune environment. Because of this, the discovery of Ichneotherium in the Coconino Sandstone represents the earliest evidence of diadectomorphs inhabiting a dry and arid environment. According to Franceschini, these new fossil tracks discovered in Grand Canyon National Park provide crucial information regarding the paleobiology of the diadectomorphs. The diadectomorphs were not believed to live in an arid desert environment because it was thought that they did not have the classic characteristics of being fully independent of water. The group of creatures that are known as amniota, extant reptiles, birds, and mammals, and diadectomorphs are not of them. In addition, Lucas mentions that paleontologists have long thought that only amniotes could live in the dry and harsh Permian deserts. This discovery demonstrates that tetrapods other than reptiles were living in those deserts, and surprisingly, were already adapted to life in an environment of limited water. According to National Park Service senior paleontologist Vincent Santucci, a distinguished team of specialists in geology and paleontology will participate in fieldwork and research to help expand our understanding of the rich fossil record preserved at Grand Canyon National Park. This endeavor is being carried out by the National Park Service in 2019 in honor of the Grand Canyon National Park Centennial, which is being commemorated with the hashtag Grand Canyon 100. Mysteries of the Grand Canyon. Among the new finds are updated ages of one of the canyon's most critical rock layers, a discovery that moves key points in the canyon's geologic history. Experts are also debating the canyon's age, as well as what its future might hold in the face of climate change. As two slabs of Earth's crust collided approximately 2 billion years ago, the Grand Canyon was formed. Rows of volcanic islands collided and fused as they came together. Under high heat and pressure, their rocks turned into the dark-colored basement rocks observed towards the canyon's bottom today, including 1.84 billion-year-old Elves Chasm Gneiss, the canyon's oldest known. The Grand Canyon's geological history is missing after that between approximately 1.75 billion and 1.25 billion years ago. Erosion wiped off rocks from that time period like chapters from a history book. The saga resumes between 1.25 billion and 730 million years ago, when fresh layers of rock known as the Grand Canyon supergroup began to form intermittently. Sediments floated to the bottom of prehistoric oceans and cemented, generating strata such as a 1.25 billion-year-old limestone packed with algal fossils, the canyon's earliest life recorded. More than 100 million years ago, the higher rock layers settle. The supergroup layers were eventually broken apart and slanted at an angle by geological causes. They were scraped by erosion, and another sea formed on top of them. Fresh sediment began to settle out at the sea's bottom, which startled Karlstrom, a geologist at the University of New Mexico. They opted to examine mineral fragments from the 60-mile formation, one of the rock strata. It has never been precisely dated before, although it was considered to be approximately 650 million years old. However, the mineral investigation revealed that it was just 508 million years old, as the scientists reported in Nature Geoscience last year. That suggests the 60-mile formation is part of the younger Grand Canyon supergroup rather than the older supergroup. Karlstrom's team may now use the new dates to better understand how quickly the floods occurred and how quickly other rock strata atop the 60-mile formation formed. Ocean-fed sediments continue to accumulate over the next hundreds of millions of years. The rocks that make up the canyon wall's upper two-thirds, limestones, shales, and sandstones of various glittering colors, date from this time period, which occurred between 508 million and 270 million years ago. John Strong Newberry, the first geologist to examine the canyon in 1857, described it as the most brilliant exposure of stratified rocks that there is in the world. According to the canyon's rim, the cream-colored Kaibab limestone is a relatively young 270 million years old. More than a million years ago, the plateau rose and a river ran through it. It had taken ages, but by this stage, all of the canyon's rock layers had been formed, and that portion of the story began some 70 million years ago when two plates of Earth's crust collided and began to push up the Rocky Mountains. What is currently known as the Four Corners region of the southwestern United States, more commonly known as the Colorado Plateau, began to rise, rising from near sea level to hundreds of feet in elevation. The Colorado River was formed roughly 6 million years ago by rainwater flowing off the Rockies. As the plateau ascended, the water carved the canyon over time. Smaller rivers subsequently carved the canyon's side canyons, mesas, and buttes that we see today. This story's timing has not been agreed upon by all geologists. Some argue that the canyon is as much as 70 million years old based on how long particular rock minerals appear to have been exposed at the surface in areas of the canyon. However, Karlstrom claims that while some parts of the canyon are older, the river system as a whole did not become connected and flowing until roughly 6 million years ago. The human story began as the geological story of the canyon came to an end. Humans initially arrived in the Americas around 12,000 years ago, at the conclusion of the last ice age. They were living in and around the canyon some 10,000 years ago, hunting big, now extinct creatures like the Shasta sloth. People living in the canyon more recently created and left split-twig animal figures that have been dated to around 4,000 years ago. They were producing crops along the canyon bottom 1,000 years ago and storing their harvests in shelters hollowed out of the walls, some of which are still visible today. Currently, at least 12 Native American tribes reside in or around the canyon, although their lives are vastly different from those of previous generations. The U.S. government, for example, limited the Havasupai to a small reservation near the canyon's bottom in 1882. Instead of traveling seasonally to areas where wildlife was plentiful, the Havasupai were obliged to make a living in the canyon year-round. When it comes to thinking about the future, the canyon's geological and human storylines converge, particularly when it comes to the importance of water in the American West as climate changes. The Colorado River provides drinking water to millions of people in 7 states and Mexico. It is already overburdened. We hope you found it interesting to read about the amazing secrets concealed within its ancient rock layers. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more great content, and we'll see you next time on our channel.